I'm Kristen.
And I'm Maddie.
We're sisters and heavy readers.
Join us every single week to talk stories, interview authors, and collab with fellow book nerds.
Welcome to the Kristen Mad Show.
Welcome back to the show, you guys. We are thrilled to introduce you to today's guest. This is none other than Fonda Lee. I feel like this interview has been such a long time coming, and we are so excited. I'm sure you all know, but Fonda Lee is the award-winning New York Times bestselling author of The Green Bone Saga, which starts with Jade City. It consists of the novels Jade City, Jade War, and Jade Legacy, but it also has the prequel novella. Also has written the fantasy novella Untethered Sky, several young adult novels, including Breathmarked, which I just read. So we are so excited that you're here, Fonda Lee. Thank you so much for giving us this interview. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for saying yes. So we always start the show with Kristen's favorite segment.
Yes, we're going to play Two Truths and a Lie because we are but children still. And we want you to tell us three things, and we're going to guess between the three which one is the lie, because two have to be true. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, right. Lie to us.
Okay. All right, here's my two truths and a lie. I've been on a movie set. I have eaten 12 chicken drumsticks in one sitting.
Oh my God.
And I own over 24 teddy bears.
Okay.
Wow.
I feel like this is going to reveal a lot about you, Fonda.
I feel like that revealed a lot about her.
I feel like that was a lot. Okay. What? I feel like you could put away the drumsticks. So I'm going to say I think that one is true.
What makes you think that she can put away drumsticks?
I just love an unexpected moment like that. Like where everyone who's looking at you is like, yeah, right. But you're like, oh, but watch me do it.
I'm like video or it didn't happen.
Right. So...
But being on a movie set, I don't know why I actually kind of believe this would be you, because I feel like you're such a creative and I could see you dabbling in many different, I guess,
media forms. I just want it to be true because I want to believe that Jade City is in production, because the sizzle reel that you put out maybe like a year ago, I was like, oh, we need it so bad.
Yeah, it was so good.
But also the teddy bears. Do you think that's true?
That one's just like unhinged, like in a kind of cool way. So maybe we should go with that one.
So wait, so we think the lie is the movie set?
No, I feel like she's been on a movie set. I don't know why.
So then I'm going to say the teddy bears is the lie.
Let's say the teddy bears is the lie.
Okay, we're going to go with the teddy bears is the lie.
Wrong. I do teddy bears. So I used to collect teddy bears as a traveling souvenir. Like everywhere that I traveled to, I would try to find a teddy bear.
Yes.
I don't do that so much because I ran out of room and my home is now mostly books instead of teddy bears. But there was a period in my 20s when I still have them all. They're just in storage. But I have a lot of teddy bears.
Oh, this is such good trivia.
Yes.
This is great lore.
Yeah.
I love this about you.
The other truth is I have definitely put away 12 drumsticks in one sitting.
Yes!
Really? So the only lie is the movie set. That is still on my author bingo card.
Yes.
One day, maybe it'll happen.
It is on the bucket list because we need it.
I put it in here as part of my manifesting of it happening one day.
I love that. Oh, this is such a good technique. I actually love. Who knew that you could manifest through the two truths and a lie icebreaker?
Oh, you can manifest through anything. You know, though, I remember Maddie showing me the sizzle reel that you posted, and she had just read the series, and I was like, it sounds good, but I've got a really long TBR. And I remember Maddie showing me, and I was like jaw on the floor, and I was like, oh, I get it now. I get why you're like feral for this series. It's very compelling for me to see stuff visually that sells me. Like I love when people do mood boards online for books. I love that stuff.
Wait, really quickly, can you tell us, like we're second graders, Fonda Lee, what is a sizzle reel? It's just like a concept reel, right?
So it is a little video that is often put together when a film or television project is in the works and it's used really as a selling tool. So oftentimes, like it's being shopped around at networks or distributors, and this is a thing that's used internally or with other stakeholders just to like build hype over the concept.
So how far did the trilogy go in that world?
Oh gosh, so The Green Bone Saga has had so many ups and downs in the television development side of things. It was optioned. It got to the point where it had a pilot script, a second episode script, the sizzle reel, and then it got canceled at a Peacock. Then it was re-optioned. It's currently been re-optioned, and I can't say much more about it. It's in development elsewhere. TBD, and you'll know more once I know more and when I can share
Okay.
more.
Okay, that's
So
exciting.
So yes, the thing about
But-
Hollywood is nothing is ever dead. It just goes into like a zombified state, and then it may resurrect or it may die again. So
Yeah.
there's yes.
Well, for those watching, obviously we're going to try to avoid spoilers without, we'll warn you if we go into spoilers. But for those watching who have not yet read the Green Bone Saga, we want to do sort of the quick, it doesn't have to be super quick, but just like give us the lore and the origin story behind getting this idea, writing this story, getting it published, and how it's been so amazingly received. I mean, it's just like one of the big powerhouse fantasy series of our time. And yeah, we want to hear that story. And I have a suspicion that you were inspired by film because it's just such a cinematic series. Like it just so deserves to be on the big screen. It plays like a movie in your head. But yeah, tell us the story.
Yeah, so it definitely is inspired in a large part by film and by the cinema that I loved. It was a passion project from the start. So I had begun my career writing young adult science fiction. I had 3 books published, and I had this idea for what my adult series would be, but it was at the time that I conceived of it such a big story that I didn't feel like I had the writing chops to take it on right away. So it lay dormant in my mind for quite a long time. But it really was part wish fulfillment and part mashing together things that I loved and putting them into a book that I wanted to read because I couldn't find that book for myself on the shelf. So the wish fulfillment part came from the fact that I'm a martial artist. I've been training in martial arts since I was a teenager. And I also love martial arts films and seeing like the heroes of those films leap through the air and punch through concrete and do all of these feats that were impossible no matter how much I trained. So it seemed quite unfair. And I really wanted to write a fantasy world in which that all made sense. Like there was a reason why people are able to do these martial arts feats that they're able to do in the movies. So I imagined the magic element, the speculative piece that would make that real. And then on the mashing together the things that I love side of things, I was really being inspired by what I loved in both fiction and cinema from an Eastern and Western cultural standpoint. So I grew up reading all the epic fantasies, Lord of the Rings, Narnia, all that. But also in my teens, my father really introduced me to Eastern cinema, including like the wuxia genre and those like heroic martial heroes narratives. And then I discovered Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and went down the rat hole of watching like all of those films and Hong Kong crime drama, like the Johnny To and John Woo films and Infernal Affairs and Election, like all of the crime drama there, and combined with like my love of mafia films in the West, like The Godfather and Goodfellas. So a lot of like fiction, a lot of inspiration from both literature and from cinema smashed together, plus the martial arts element. And all I had at first was just vibes. I didn't have a plot. I didn't have character. I didn't have anything else. I just was like, this is like the vision. It was very much like a sizzle reel. So the sizzle reel that you saw was like kind of the vibes of that in my head. And so it took me many years to realize that and put it out on paper. And then it had quite a publication journey as well, because I finished the draft of what was the manuscript of Jade City. I sent it to my agent, and he said, "Great." This was in, I believe, December of 2026. And
Wait. Wait, 2016?
Sorry, 2016.
Okay.
Not
I was like,
2016.
we published it in the future.
Yeah,
okay.
we published it. I've lost track.
Actually, Fonda is a time traveler.
2016.
We just didn't know. Okay.
Yes, I know. It's been 10 years, and
Yeah.
I just,
Okay.
yeah. I went
Love
back in
it.
time, sent my book.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so 2016. So I finished it. I sent it in December, and then 2 weeks later, I saw this tweet go out back when Twitter was a thing, from an editor at Orbit, asking for a manuscript wish list item. She said, I would really love to see a Game of Thrones-esque fantasy, but set in Asia with crime families and magic. And it was the most random, just like perfect confluence of events.
You're like, I'm sorry, did you just
like, I actually
write the blurb?
I have this book. And then the rest is history. She became the acquiring editor. Sarah Guan at Orbit acquired it. It was published. The Green Bone Saga had I would say, kind of a really gradual, amazing word of mouth trajectory, where the first book came out and was very well received critically, but it really kind of hit its stride in terms of readership after Jade War, and then by Jade Legacy, it felt like there were people just really, really eagerly awaiting it. And since the trilogy completed, which I can't believe now was the end of 2021, so in the intervening few years, there's been more and more people who have come to the series and discovered it and just gently bullied their friends into reading it. And so it has just had this wonderful life. And I am still so excited and happy that like it's gotten new covers, and so there's a new edition. There've been multiple special editions. There's a tabletop role-playing game adaptation in process. There's been merch. So that just the energy around people really connecting to the characters and the world has been so satisfying.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I have so many follow-up questions, but we'll just start with, so did you sell it as a trilogy? Like when you were writing Jade City, you knew this needs to be 3 books.
I had what writers call a standalone with series potential, because when you're writing the first book, you don't know if you're going to be able to get a book deal for more than one book. So I, from the start, knew that this was ideally going to be a big story. It was, in my mind, a multi-book project, but you don't know if you're going to get that opportunity. So I had to at least make the first book a complete story on its own, one that was satisfying, even if that's all you were able to get. And then, fortunately, I got the 3-book deal and was at that point able to really think about what book 2 and 3 would be.
Yeah, because I'm thinking back now. I read it in 2023. Kristen just finished it, and
like
as we were
ago.
as we were discussing it, and it's so much more fresh in her mind. But I'm thinking back to where I feel those breaks and those climaxes in each book, and I was like, I just feel like there's so many full circle things that don't really land until Jade Legacy. So I could never have pictured Jade City on its own, but we were lucky enough to read it when it was complete.
Yes.
Like we just both, no breaks, like just went right through all 3 books.
Yeah.
Well, and I love so much that in these books, I feel like you build on themes. If a book is going to be stuffed with themes that we can think about and ponder and discuss together, it's like our favorite vibe. So I would love to take some time talking about your themes.
Yeah.
Like we could start with heroism, when you're talking about the moral ambiguity of our heroes.
Yes, I feel like the Call family, Kristen said this is all we've talked about for 3 weeks. But
because I just read all 3 in 3 weeks. I was just like, I love this.
She's going, oh, no, don't do that. No. And she's like, are they going to do something stupid? And I'm like, of course they are. They're the Calls. Yes, they're going to do it.
They were the good guys. And she's like,
I'm like, you love them. They're the heroes, but they're not good guys. Like, that's not the point. Like, anyways. So
that
again,
was a choice of yours.
Without spoilers, we would love to talk to you about how you just took that idea of protagonist who's not necessarily conventional hero. And because you have multiple of them, we can talk about all of them.
Yeah. I had, from the start, this tension with the characters that this wasn't a story of heroes versus villains. I wanted the reader to be able to finish off the books and feel like they could have read the entire series from the point of view of the antagonists, like Aitmata, and had completely different sympathies. So that was my goal from the start, was that, you know, we have antagonists and we have protagonists, but what I really wanted was for them to feel like real people. And real life is rarely a simple story of just heroes and villains, right? Everyone is the protagonist of their own story, and they're antagonists of, you know, someone else's story. And that's really what I wanted with the Green Bone Saga, was for it to feel just really authentic to human nature. And you know, the one thing that I have said about the moral ambiguity of the characters, because I get that a lot, like these are really morally gray characters or morally ambiguous characters, is that I don't think of myself as writing morally gray characters. I think of myself as writing morally gray societies. And there's a difference, because the code that these characters live by, the social norms, the expectations that come from their upbringing and their society, are such that that influences their behavior, and that influences their worldview and their perspective. And that's true for all of us in real life, right? So that is what that lends itself to, is, you know, from our perspective as 21st century, you know, Western civilization, modern people, we might look at like one of these characters and be like, oh gosh, like they're good guys or they're bad guys. But they're just acting in accordance to kind of the internal and external pressures that they have. And so, like, you know, a character, I mean, I've seen readers argue over, like, is Hilo a good person or not? It doesn't really matter. Like, he is a good person by the standards of his society, and in like what his role is, like what he is expected to do, right? And so I think, like, that idea of, like, you know, heroism is much more personal than like narrative, right? It's not like the heroism of the person who has picked up the magic sword and is going on a quest to defeat the Dark Lord. It's the heroism of, like, you know, being there for your family, or like doing something that's dutiful even if it costs you something personally. Or you know, are you able to, like, uh see past to the designs of your antagonists to, like, protect people that you love, right? Like, there's that's kind of, I wanted it to be a small scale fantasy, really, and it is, like, at its core, even though there's big international plans and there's all these countries,
right,
at its core it is a small scale family story.
Yeah, it is. There's such tension there, and Hilo is such a great.
He's great, but he's so tough. I think for me personally, I remember constantly falling in love with him as a character and being like, oh, I love his choices and I love what he's fighting for. And then other times it's like red flag, red flag, red flag, and I'm like, dude, like,
well,
where is your compass pointed right now? Like,
but what you just said about it being intimate versus epic scale, like, you have a great tension in this series with that fun, in the sense that when you're zoomed really in and he makes a choice, I'm thinking of a very specific choice he makes, I think in Jade City, where you're just like, I'm just like, but if you zoom out, once you get more context, like, who who else is going to make that choice?
Right.
And he has to, like, somebody has to. And so I think there is this, I like this aspect in certain stories where it's like somebody has to make the impossible choice. And that is like a tenet of leadership in some ways. Like you have to make the choice that isn't going to make you come out smelling like roses.
The most popular, the most
Right.
beloved.
And you're going to have to be a villain to somebody to be somebody else's hero. And so you have to make that choice. It's an impossible choice. And I think that's what makes it interesting. And I think even when I think that the parts that really pull on your heartstrings when you're reading a book like this is why we want everyone to read it, because it just grips you and makes you feel and think. But are those moments where the characters within the family, like where Hilo or Shay or even Andon, they'll make choices that the other hates, or they betray each other. And that's where you're like, no, because like then you have to pick sides within the family, and that sucks. That just sucks as the reader. But I don't know.
It makes for a great story, though.
But again, when you zoom out of that situation, and you do such a good job because we sprawl so many decades throughout the series, but when you zoom out, it's like you can see that moment in context, and that also feels real. That feels authentic and like real life.
Yeah, I was very cognizant of wanting big decisions to have tangible and lasting consequences. And that was a freedom that I had because I was working with these long time scales and able to follow these characters through really most of their lives. So things that are choices that they made earlier on in book one or book two can really come back and have sometimes unexpected consequences in book two or book three. And that idea of kind of generational repercussions is something that I love, that I really
we
wanted
loved
to
it
do.
too. But it did rip our hearts out.
Yeah, it's like we loved it, and
so much crying happened.
Well, let's talk about the family then. The theme of family and obligation, and just, I guess, feeling like you either disappoint the family or you make the family happy, and it's a constant struggle for each of our characters.
It is, but I think I connected most to it through Andon. So maybe we could. I mean, you tell us. Like, what did you feel like you were exploring that through every character, or?
I really thought of this story as having one main character, and the main character is the Call family. And each of the point of view protagonists is one element of the Call family, the protagonist mega character. And because I had that approach, I thought of each of these characters as having a different relationship, not just to the family, but to Jade and to Green Bone culture and society. So I wanted their frictions to kind of mirror the bigger frictions that were going on. So Hilo, for example, is very entrenched. He is he is such an embodiment of Green Bone culture, and he's very sure of his role in the world, and that gets upended, and he has to evolve, just like Green Bone culture is challenged and evolves over the course of the books. Andon, on the other hand, is a character who is constantly trying to find his place, because he has so many elements of his identity that make him not quite fit, right? Like the fact that he's biracial, the fact that he's queer, the fact that he is this sensitivity to Jade that makes it so dangerous for him. There are so many times in the story where Andon is wrestling with this, like, where do I fit and how do I relate? But it's also, the only family he's known. And he is so loyal, but it's in constant conflict with his own internal compass as well. So then you have got a character like Shay, right, who's kind of gone away and sort of seen the world outside and has come back and is trying to walk that tightrope of being a clan leader while also like moving the family and the society into into different times and dealing with
Yeah.
modernization and expansion and all that. So yeah, so that's kind of the way that I thought about it, was really like each of these characters has a different role in the family,
Yeah.
and they also represent a different relationship to their culture and the world that they live in. But all of their, like, the ways that they are able to view each other is it's enhanced by the fact that I have multiple points of view. So you're seeing the characters from their own heads, but then you also
Yeah.
see them from the perspective of their family members, and sometimes like their family members have just a different perspective on them than
Yeah.
the self concept that they have.
Yeah. I definitely felt at times like they were representing different, like it's all about loyalty, but it's like different loyalties. Like in some ways I felt like Hilo's loyalty to Lan, or even just like to, it's weird, like in the very beginning of Jade City I thought that Hilo represented this idea of you're loyal to your family, but you at some point have to rebel. Like you have to kind of like have your own thing. But I think because of what happens in Jade City, he ends up really kind of holding the line of tradition. Whereas like Shay, I feel like
Mm.
is pushing the boundaries of progress. And so it was interesting. Like they don't, all of that to say, I don't think the characters always are static. I don't think they're always
Hmm.
consistent in what they
Right,
want. You know what I
right.
mean? Like given
Yeah,
whatever happens or whatever conflict or ego is involved,
yeah,
or grief is involved, I think
for sure.
they will even end up shifting position. But I loved what you did with the world building. So I did want to talk about that in terms of themes, that theme of like the traditional, this is what's always worked and what's always been expected of us versus like, this is the progress we need to make like
Hmm.
economically.
Yeah. When I grew up reading fantasy, I always had this sense that traditional epic fantasy was very, in a sense, static, because it
Mm.
often like took place in these fantasy worlds that felt like they'd been there forever, like they were unchanging, right? Like you know,
Yeah.
the hobbits have lived in Hobbiton for
Forever.
generations and generations, forever,
Yes.
right? Like the elves, they have been in Rivendell, like who knows how long? No one knows how long.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though there is this kind of like golden age kind of nostalgia that comes through in the vibes of those, that I didn't personally relate to them because I
Okay.
was the child of immigrants, right? Like my parents grew up during like post-war Asia in like 1950s, when Taiwan was like just coming out of the war era and like booming economically, and then they moved to the United States in like 1960s when like the country here was like booming and expanding, and globalization and modernization were like huge forces. And
Yeah.
so I never felt like that was my family story. Like my family story was one of like migration and like seeking economic opportunity. And
Yeah.
that's like the reality for, so, most of us. And that I wanted to see that reflected in
Mm.
fantasy, because fantasy, I've often heard this, like, what the sort of idea that fantasy and science fiction are two sides of the same coin, in that
Mm.
fantasy is in conversation with where we came from, and
Yeah.
science fiction is in conversation with where we are going. And I
Yes.
love that idea. And for me, the most compelling, interesting historical element of like where we came from is more sort of the near past of like how quickly lives have changed, like how much migration has changed society, and like what diaspora identity means, and how like globalization and technology have completely like changed so much about our lives. And so that's like what I wanted to see reflected, and like even in the little things in the Green Bone Saga. By the end of the Green Bone Saga, there's foot phones, there's like internet cafes. Like I
Yeah.
loved being able to play with that time. So it's like to
Hmm.
see a city like John Loon when at the beginning of Jade City versus like what it is at the
Yes.
end of Jade
Brilliant.
Legacy. um, and have that kind of be the backdrop to all the stuff that's going on in the characters' lives.
Yeah, and I think it hits emotionally,
Yes.
even though it's just it's the set piece. I think there's a reason, like, I felt like I was literally a puddle on the floor at the end of Jade Legacy, and part of it was character arcs, and part of it was just, I think, this nostalgia I felt for, like, where we'd come from and how much had changed so quickly, and, like, I feel pride and I feel joy and excitement for where the family gets to and what they're able to bring in, but I also feel this, like, grief over, like, the time lost, and or
Mhm.
not even the time lost, but, like, the bygone era, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Right.
And so I think it worked really emotionally, actually.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That was what I was going for.
We love that too. Like being raised on fantasy, I think it just is so fun to read something that doesn't feel like any fantasy I've read.
Right.
Because I don't know if people just love to lean into that kind of like old school fantasy or what, but we read so much sci-fi and so much fantasy. They're both our favorites. So I
Mhm.
do feel like this felt like somehow a marriage of the two.
Yeah.
Like it was hard for me to like make it fantasy because I was like, well, there weren't any castles and horses, which is what's in most of my fantasy books. But
Yeah,
this was
urban.
like so, I don't know, it was gritty and it felt like almost more relatable,
Yeah, the
because
urban
it felt more
aspect of it.
modern.
Well, I think the new covers really reflect that,
Oh, they're so
actually.
cool.
Yeah, can you talk to us sorry, we're like, whoop, shift gears, but
Yeah,
how how did the new covers hit you? Like, how were you part of the process? Did it
I
Yeah,
was.
how did it land
Yeah,
with you?
so I was so thrilled that my publisher did a reissue of the books with new covers because I have to admit, like the original covers, they kind of did their job, but I think honestly, at the time that Jade City came out 10 years ago, um, well, almost 10 years ago now, they're they didn't really know. I don't think we really kind of knew what to do with the with the messaging on the covers because like you
Sure.
said, right, it's not a traditional epic fantasy, but
Right.
it also didn't fit the like the branding of what you would think of as traditional urban fantasy with like
Sure.
I don't know, the girl holding a sword next to a like a motorcycle in with the
Yeah.
backdrop of New
Right.
York or
It's
something like
not
that,
giving,
right?
like,
It's not that.
paranormal Twilight, like,
Right,
no, it's
right.
not giving that.
So it's also not traditional urban fantasy, but it's
Right.
also, and they wanted to pull in people who maybe weren't typical fantasy readers, but would like crime drama. And so they were kind of, anyways, it ended up being a cover that stands out on the shelf and has like a cool color scheme. But
Yeah.
I love art. Like, I just love having art on covers. And so for a very long time, I was always very jealous of being like, oh, like, I wish I had art on my covers. I wish I had art.
Oh.
And so when they said they were going to do the trade paperback reissued with with new covers, I got to be part of the process of what do we want it to look like. And really, it came down to okay, we want the vibes to really come through. Like, we want this to
Yeah.
really reflect the cinematic tone
Yeah.
and to just be cool. Like, this just needs
Yeah.
to be cooler. And
Yeah.
I had found Tommy Pocket, who is an artist who does a lot of like he does these like special one-off movie posters. So if you
Oh.
actually go and look at his website, there are like really cool movie posters there
Oh,
for like
yeah.
all sorts of films. And I love that kind of the just the very spare but like cinematic um, tone. Like and I surfaced that with the art team at my publisher, and fortunately they were like, yeah, like we see where
Let's do it.
yeah see where we're going with this.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
feel
I
like
was
they
very happy.
have
Yay.
they do kind of give that, I was thinking they have this, like, art deco feel to them
Mm,
that I think kinda helps capture, like, we're not getting medieval out of this, but it also doesn't feel like New York City turn of the century either. Like, you're
right.
getting that it has a little bit of historic tone to it, but it, like, places it correctly in time, and I also think it covers some of that, like, the glitz and glamour of the
Hmm.
crime family,
Hmm.
and that they are this type of aristocracy in terms of where they are set in time, and I feel like it captures a little bit of that, like, um, sleazy, sexy glamour of it,
Right.
which is absolutely missing from the original covers for sure.
Well, I guess we just need both. I'm like, I guess I'll just have two because I actually do love the originals, but yes, it's going to be
feel
fun.
sentimental about the
Yes,
originals.
I agree.
It's like those are the books I held when I was
Right.
reading.
Yeah.
So they're
Right,
important.
of course.
But can we talk about this? Like you just said sexy. I was actually blown away with how amazing your explicit scenes were. I thought they were like the best written I've ever read.
To hear that. That makes me so happy.
Yes, she was shocked. She was like,
it's so like raw and real and like crazily perfect. Like I think so much romance is so long and it's like, all right, we get it. It was a great time. But you like gave me, I was like, oh, more. I want more. That was amazing. Like I don't know. I guess Maddie didn't give me a heads up.
No.
And I was buddy reading this book and me and the person I'm buddy reading with are like, can you believe how spicy this book is? Like,
it's not spicy.
It's not. Nobody's going to read that book for the spice, but the spice felt so raw and honest for these characters. And I'm glad we got a piece of that part of their life. We see them for so many years. Obviously,
it's part of their
love
life.
and loss and pining and yearning is a part of life. And I just didn't know you were going to place that in there. I just was like, go off, Fonda. It was
great. No, I agree. When you reminded me of it, it was, but I think it's the same with your action scenes. I think your dialogue scenes are the same way. I do think they have this real quality to them that doesn't, it doesn't pull you out of the story.
Right.
Like it just feels right along like it's part of it. So expect like,
it's like a snapshot of that person's life.
Yes.
Like we're going to get a snapshot of the beautiful moments, the healthy moments, the really unhealthy moments,
toxic moments. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
Yeah, that was very much what I wanted to impart was just this idea that like these are just like the characters living their life.
Yeah.
And I don't like suddenly close the door when an action scene is about to happen. So I'm not going to do it with the sex scenes either. And I just wanted them to feel like, I mean, very realistic in like sense.
They
like
are.
They just like I personally don't have a prose style that is very like very descriptive, very flowery. Like my ideal is very spare prose that gets out of the way of the story. And so that's kind of how I approach fight scenes and sex scenes and even the intimate family moment scenes was just kind of get out of the way of the story. And I almost felt like a family biographer, if it makes sense. That's how I wanted the story to read. I do have a great story though about the spicy scenes, which is
yes, we have to hear.
So my son's teammate's mom, who knows I'm an author, was driving in the car with her kids and her husband and listening to my books on audio. And then like one of those scenes comes up and she's like, oh,
there was no warning.
And then her husband, who I also know, was like, wait, is this Fonda's book? So I have had a few people tell me that they showed up in the audiobook unexpectedly, like while they were at work or,
Yeah.
But it does feel so real, like, because there's not this like build up to like, here it comes.
Right.
Like, no, it's just like, and like they might have had this conversation in the garden or the shower or bed. They're having the conversation in bed, like, because that's normal life. And it feels so, it is spare and it feels realistic. It feels earned. And I really loved it. I agree. But it didn't stand out to me. Like, I wouldn't call them spice scenes because I don't consider the book to be like being written towards those scenes.
No. Right. No, it's more of a full circle. Like I feel like you completed the circle of like the emotions that we feel in life. And it just makes sense that moments of passion and intimacy are obviously going to be a part of it. I just don't read a lot of fantasy with really good, like when I'm talking high fantasy, like yours, that actually has scenes where I feel like I can connect to my characters in those moments. And I was like, wow, Fonda might have just done it better than I've ever read it.
I do think sometimes in high fantasy, either it's very obviously not there or it's violent, and it's not just like a normal part of life. It's like it's meant to be like this horrible moment for one of the characters. So it did hit different, and it was great.
Yeah, I just was like, what a surprise! I guess the whole series was like, wow, what a surprise! This is just surprising me, right, left and center.
Was it a big other than those types of scenes, from going from YA to writing your first adult, what other like big significant changes did you have to make to your craft to write for an adult audience versus the young adult audience?
Really not much in terms of how I approach the work, but I had a much bigger canvas with my adult work. Like my young adult fiction, I'm always very cognizant of being very efficient with pacing, keeping it very focused, very centered on the teenage protagonist. And with my adult work, I just was like, oh, I have all this freedom. Like I can have all these multiple
Yeah.
point of views. I can have like decades of time go by. I have characters of all different ages. And that's kind of what I leaned into. It was just the canvas being so much bigger. And also the like themes being chewier and being able to really like just kind of dive into the world building, because that's something that like with my young adult fiction I was always like very cognizant of being very economical with it. Well, as the adult fantasy readers, they want to spend some time with you in the world
Yeah.
and really understanding
Yeah.
how it works.
Yeah. I found that with your the economics of the Green Bone Saga versus
Breath of the
Breath of
Dragon.
the Dragon, which, but even as I was reading Breath of the Dragon, because I read it after I read Green Bone Saga, I still felt like among the young adult books I read, it is spare. You are spare with your language as you are in the Green Bone Saga, but I still felt like we were getting more. I felt like there was more meat to the world building than I see in most young adult novels. And I felt like the magic system was still on the complex side and thematically complex side for a YA. So I think there's probably just a part of you, Fonda, that doesn't really want to oversimplify, which I appreciate, because then I can enjoy your young adult work as an
Yeah.
adult.
Mm.
And it doesn't feel like it's
Like too watered down,
it doesn't feel
perhaps.
juvenile to me. No, it feels like we're still like it still gives a lot of relatability and a lot to think about as an adult. So I do want to talk about Breath of the Dragon and your collaboration with Shannon and just how like again the lore of that story.
Yeah, it came about very unexpectedly. So I had already planned out the next books that I was going to write. I was on contract for another adult novel. I didn't actually think that I was going to write a young adult novel after I'd written the three that I had at the beginning of my career. But I got an unexpected phone call from, well, my agent who had been contacted by Shannon's agents and was told, hey, Shannon Lee would like to have a conversation with you, which does not happen every day. So,
Right?
of course, I took it. And it turns out that Shannon is a fan of fantasy, which I was not aware of, and that she really was interested in creating a series that was inspired by by her father's life and films and philosophy, and not being a novelist herself, she was looking to find someone to partner with, and it made a ton of sense for us to join forces because Bruce Lee is such an iconic figure for me personally as a martial artist, as a film buff, as an Asian American. It like the brand congruence was totally there. And
Yes.
as I talked to Shannon, I just got this great sense from her that she saw this as a vehicle to create something that was not only super entertaining, but that would introduce a younger generation to who her father was and to his teachings and his his ethos and his legacy. So we started talking about it more. She had written a brief treatment based on some of his unproduced screenplays, and it was a just a very kind of general outline of the world that she was envisioning, and specifically the scrolls and the journey of the main character, Jun, who is kind of a Bruce Lee stand-in, but he's this heroic young figure who's kind of thrust into, this big martial arts tournament, which is very Enter the Dragon-esque. And then the second book is very like Game of Death-esque with like the pagoda with many tiers of fighters. So as we talked about it, we just got excited and saw all the ways that we could expand the world. And when I first read it, I started thinking about, okay, how would I flesh this out with the world building and with the secondary
Yeah.
characters, and what's the character arc for Jun? So we created a proposal, and that sold
Oh
to
my
Wednesday
gosh.
Books, and the first book is out. It's called Breath of the Dragon, and I'm working on the second, which is called Mark of the Warrior, and will be out next year.
Amazing. Can we talk about? I think that the themes and the world building actually kind of mash up a little bit. I think the fact that you're dealing with these like two halves of a society and these two philosophies, that's part of the world you've built, but it's also very thematically strong. So can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about, did that come from Shannon? Did that come from you? Did you guys kind of build that together? Did it develop as you were writing?
Yeah, it evolved really organically because
Okay.
um, initially Shannon had come up with this idea for these two scrolls. And the more we dove into it, the more this theme of duality emerged. So
Yeah.
I came up with the concept of like East and West, and we knew that like we had these set pieces, two big set pieces. We wanted to have the tournament and then the pagoda. And then as we're developing it, kind of the final piece that fell into place was Jun's twin brother. And
Oh my
so
gosh. So that came later.
that came later. That came later. I
Okay.
had come up with like a whole uh, like first few chapters without like in which he didn't even exist.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it changed really dramatically. And
Yeah.
once we had um, John's twin brother in the story, like all the thematic of all the pieces just like fell into place,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then we kind of knew where we were going from there. That idea of like yin and yang, of east and west, of like bridging divides is very much a part of Bruce Lee's legacy, especially like the role that he played as an ambassador and bringing over like his childhood growing up in Hong Kong, but then being and then coming to America and then going back and like kind of bridging those divides, and then his overall message of unity and not being um, not being limited by like arbitrary divides and trying to cross that path was very, very relevant to the book, and to kind of the message that we're trying to sneak into the narrative.
Oh my gosh, it works so well. I feel like the heartbeat of the story is their twin relationship and how it's severed. And I feel like it acts as this emotional bedrock to Jin's character through the whole narrative because you realize like he's building this whole identity in response to his love, but also his competition with and his separation and grief with losing his brother, like right there in the beginning with them being separated. So I feel like it's so, I can't believe that came later. It
I
feels
can't
like such a
either.
foundational part of the
No, I
story.
can't believe it. I can think of only a few instances in my career where I've had what feels like a lightning bolt just strike, where I'm like, that was a stroke of genius. That
Yes.
addition of Psy and the twin relationship is one of them. The other is in the Green Bone Saga, which is it's the duel in Jade War.
Oh my gosh.
That did not exist at
No
first.
way.
Unbelievable, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't imagine that that book would be what it is without that scene. Like how? But those are the two instances I can think of in my entire career where later just flashes of inspiration completely changed a project.
Wow.
I love that. That has to be like a pinch me moment when you see those come through and you're like, wow, what if I
Yeah,
had
and
not thought of that?
they're really rare. Like most of the time, I'm a pretty strict planner. Like I have an idea for what the book is. I know how it begins. I know how it ends. I know what the major events are that occur. And so there are always surprises along the way, but they're not so immensely foundational as something like those two examples.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
I think Kristen's gonna love Breath of the Dragon. It's like coming up on her TBR, but I think Kristen always really appreciates like a well woven in side character relationship that has potential for romance, but it doesn't feel like overpowering in the narrative. And I feel like that, I mean, I don't know yet, obviously, because I don't know where it's going, but I felt like some of the other characters in Breath of the Dragon, whether it was like kind of a rivals to friends situation,
Hmm.
also like maybe like a friendship crush situation that could develop into a romance. Like it felt very age appropriate, but again, also felt adult. Like it felt like
Hmm.
those subtle things that like these characters, we don't know what they're going to be to June in the next book, but it's clear
Hmm.
that there's potential there. Like they're being developed. There's enough there that it can develop into something.
Oh, you're getting me so excited. I
I
kind of
feel
want
like
to
you're gonna
buddy
like
read it
it.
with my 13-year-old.
I think Robin would.
Do you think she could
I think
handle it?
I'm trying to
I
think if
think
there's any
so.
violence. I think it's fine.
I mean, she's read The Hunger Games, so
Oh
as far
yeah,
as
she'll be
Oh
violence
yeah,
fine.
goes, I
that's
think she'll
fine.
be fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
I
so
mean, I'm
excited to
really
share it.
glad to hear that because we also knew going into this project that we wanted it to be a book with a lot of crossover ability. Because, of course, there are loads and loads of adult Bruce Lee fans who grew up on his films, who know who he is, who
Yeah.
are going to appreciate the little Easter eggs that are snuck in there, the references to like film characters or Bruce Lee's life that younger readers aren't going to pick up on, but they can just enjoy the story for what it is. And then older readers and hopefully my adult audience who might be tempted to try a young adult book because of Breath of the Dragon will be able to see some of those Easter eggs that we've snuck in there.
I definitely think it has cross audience potential for sure. And I think again, yeah, for those of us who love to read with our kids, it's like
Yeah.
it's a perfect one to sink into. And I'm so excited for book 2. It's one of those where it's like I want to tell everybody to read it now, but I'm also like, but it does end on a cliffhanger. So don't be mad. Like you will
Right.
have to wait. So it's like maybe wait till the second book comes out so you could just binge them, but also you should read it now because it's really good and then you'll be excited for book 2. So no, I loved it. I was like, I know again, I know Wednesday Books is young adult, but I felt like it totally worked for me as an adult.
Well, and we both really do we still find YAs all the time that we really enjoy as adults. So I just can't imagine how little girl Fonda Lee feels knowing that she was going to do this collaboration. That's got to just feel like
Oh,
unreal.
I could not have imagined it as, little me would have been absolutely blown away to have a book published at all. Um,
Oh,
so yeah.
what is the actual writing process like
Mhm.
with Shannon? Like, do you write pages and send them to her? Are you both writing sections and fitting them together? Like, technically, brass taxes, how does that work?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, especially because different writing partnerships work very differently depending on what the inclinations or the skill sets are of the two people who are involved. So for Shannon, I do the bulk of the actual drafting, the first draft. So what we did in with Breath of the Dragon, and it was a little bit different for Mark of the Warrior because it was the second book and we kind of knew where the story was going. But for Breath of the Dragon, we had several long Zoom call brainstorming sessions where we
Okay.
hashed out the characters, the world, what the store, where the story was going, what we wanted to see, like wish list type stuff. And then I would create sort of a general outline based on all the stuff we came up with, send it to Shannon. She would noodle on it, give her her thoughts, and we kind of go back and forth until we had an outline that felt pretty good. And with Mark of the Warrior, the second book, we got really in depth. So I think we had the most detailed outline I've ever done for any project because it's a collaboration and we're both pretty busy people, and so we have to juggle getting us both involved with the manuscript so that we can still meet deadlines. So we're working in uh, more of our schedule constraints. So we're always cognizant of we need to be on the same page and we don't have a lot of time to go off on a ton of detours. So we have a really detailed outline, and then I will write pages and work in a shared Google Doc where basically I write the pages, she sees it pop up in the shared drive, and then she goes in, starts noodling with it, adding comments, adding her little edits and revisions and so on, and then I'm continuing to draft, and then she's going in, and then I come back around and I start revising and going through. So it's kind of an iterative process where I'm taking the bulk of the first draft work, and she is sort of the Bruce Lee Bible person, and
Yeah.
also making sure that it's staying very true to the vision of Bruce Lee's brand and what makes it a Bruce Lee-esque project, and also contributing like creative thoughts. And so there's a lot of like, sometimes we'll have to hop on a call and be like, okay, let's like noodle this part out.
Oh my gosh, that's so intimate,
I
like
know.
this process. Cause
Oh,
like I can't imagine revisions
it's
and being like,
very
are you mad?
strange for me personally because I mean it's really refreshing and different. I'm used to just being locked in my own head, and I won't show really really rough drafts to people, my beta readers, for example. I won't show them until they're at least like in decent shape. So
Right.
this has been a really interesting experience and really fun, actually, just to like have somebody in your really rough drafts.
Yeah.
Right.
They're like
It's a
up in
little bit
your like brain
exposing.
space.
Yeah.
Wow, and I guess I just never think of like these amazing like sacred tomes that we read as like having been drafted
In a
in
Google
Google
Doc.
Docs. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
they are. I'm sure tons of them are, but I never think of it that way. Like by the time I see it, it feels like such a like
Right.
thing, you
Yeah.
know?
And to really get into brass tacks, like I do all my work in Scrivener. I have a really organized like file folder system, and my drafts are all like lined up on one side of my screen. And so I'm like kind of working across both because I will like draft stuff in Scrivener because that's what I'm used to, and then like import it into Google Docs, then
Oh
import it
my
back,
God.
send it back, and
Wow.
Wow, it's like the digital version of your brain. It's just
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
here we go.
You got to keep everything so organized. So obviously you're working on this project and having a lot of fun collaborating. What are you doing on your own? What do we have to look forward to?
Yeah, so my big release next year, other than Mark of the Warrior, which will be, I think, end of 2026, is so my other project that's coming out is The Last Contract of Isako. It's a standalone science fiction novel that'll be out in summer 2026.
Oh,
And it has been somewhat delayed because of the fact that I took on two projects at the same time, which is absolute hell on a writing schedule. I don't recommend it. I'm very happy with how both projects are turning out, but it's been it's been a bit of a challenge, schedule wise. But Last Contract of Isako had a has had quite the journey. It started off as a duology, and partway through writing it, I realized I was going to blow the whole thing up and turn it into one standalone book. So
Oh my God.
I restructured it completely. Another like situation where what I envisioned it to be at the start ended up being completely changed. But I'm happy with how it turned out, and I'm excited for people to get their hands on it. I've been describing it as my cyberpunk samurai space opera without the space. So it takes place on a um, this isolated colony planet with heavy dystopian Blade Runner slash John Wick vibes, and it's about
Oh
an
my
aging
gosh.
swordswoman on her last job, and she uncovers this mystery that turns into a wider conspiracy, and there's sword fights and corporate shenanigans.
Oh my God.
sounds delicious.
I'm so
Oh, and we
excited.
only have to wait
Like
like 8
6
months.
months.
8 months,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. I'm so excited. I feel
That
like I
sounds
must have been
great.
living under a rock that I've heard nothing about this, but I'm so excited that you're doing a sci fi, and snaps and props to you for taking a duology and making it one, because I feel like so often people are trying to do the opposite
yeah.
for motivations. And I'm just so glad that you were like, nope, this is its own thing. I can do this as a standalone. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was not what I expected because you're right. Normally, it's easier to be like, "Oh, the story's getting too big. I'm going to split into more, or I'm going to have more
Right.
books." But it
Yeah.
just really worked better. And I'm always very just beholden to what's right for the story, what makes it a better book,
Oh
and
my
yeah,
goodness.
that's what did
So
it.
would we be able to slot this in? You said there's a mystery and a conspiracy, and you did say cyberpunk, but could this fall under like techno thriller?
It definitely has some techno thrillery vibes.
Nice.
I mean, I think my publisher is going to be marketing it as dystopian
Okay.
esque science fiction, which I think makes some degree. I think it makes sense. It fits there, but it's kind of a mashup again, like Green Bone Saga, a mashup of things that I really like, and I'm trying to figure out a way to put them all together.
Yeah.
And so it's combination of my love for samurai films by like Akira Kurosawa, plus techno thrillery, Blade Runner, John Wick, Dune, and background as a management consultant in corporate America. So it's like all of those. Oh, and like midlife crisis, I suppose, vibes,
Yeah.
just being 40 something, and it's like all of that together.
Just put it all in there. I love that. Why label it unless it's helpful?
Right.
You know,
and like, why limit yourself? If you're
No.
like, I want to write about all these things, let's just throw them in a pot and see what we can do. I think that's going to be a really fun one, especially because like to have a powerful standalone. I'm trying to remember the last dystopian standalone that I had that was wild.
Artificial Wisdom. But that was
It's going to be a
summer
duology.
2024.
But yeah.
It is going to be a duology.
Yeah. Like it's kind of rare. I mean, it could just be my reading, but it feels rare to me. So I am going to eat that up. We might just have to send an email to someone to get an early release of that.
For sure. For sure.
And I realized I haven't
to.
written a standalone in a while.
Yeah.
My other standalone novel was my debut. So it's been 10 years since I've had a standalone novel.
Will you tour for it?
Plans are coming together. I don't know what my publisher has lined up yet. I'm sure that it's in process, but hopefully I'll be able to, yeah.
Oh,
sure.
we're so excited
That'd
for
be
you.
so fun. Yeah, I was also thinking Blood Over Brighthaven, side note. Was a very strong standalone.
Yeah, that had some crossover, of course, but different.
They're few and far between, especially in the sci-fi fantasy space. We always feel like when we're recommending books or whatever, we're also recommending 6 books at a time because it's always like a series of some kind. So I feel like we're looking for them. So that's so exciting.
If anybody can do it, you can do it.
Well, thank you for the vote of confidence. I know what you mean, though, because series are so common in our genre space. And sometimes it's nice to just have like a one and done. At least for me, I also enjoy the variety of just working in different lengths and mediums. So it keeps things interesting for me too.
Amazing.
Oh, Fonda, this is fantastic. Not only do we have things that we can enjoy forever that you've already written, but I love that you're still like in the throes of passion with your writing. So we can like look forward to hopefully many, many great standalones and series and collaborations. This was just such a good time.
But thank you for being flexible with the timing and hopping back on, and super appreciate it.
No problem.
It was perfect. It was so perfect.
Can you let everyone know where they can keep up with you and your upcoming projects and like where they can find you online? And we will put those links also in our show notes.
Yeah, for sure. So my website is fondalee.com. Sign up for my author newsletter if you want to get the latest that's going on and any announcements about giveaways and tour dates and all of that. I'm also on Instagram at fonda.lee and a few other social media hangouts here and there, but those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
Okay, perfect. Well, we hope that this episode encouraged any of you who haven't picked up works by Fonda Lee to go check them out. And for those of you who are longtime fans, we hope this chat was fun for you guys to just dive into the stories that we've all been enjoying, and we can all get excited for what's coming in 2026. We're so glad you guys chose to hang out with us today, and we will see you all in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.